Easy Sports Talk Show with Ed Smith and Javon Adams. My name is Javon Adams. You can call me Jay or Jay Love. That man beside me is the one and only Ed Smith. He played not only professional baseball, but also played in the National Football League for that first Super Bowl bound team for the Atlanta Falcons. He's an author. He is a motivational speaker. He gets down on the grill as well. What is good, my brother?
Happy hump day to you, man. I mean, the way you sometimes give my accolades, you would think I actually done something in this world.
Speaking of accolades, I want to ask you this before we get into the show here. Uh, have you ever, because the Diamondbacks, so we're located in, for those listening or watching, we're in the Phoenix metropolitan area. Last night, one of the Diamondbacks hit 3 home runs in a game. What's the most number of home runs that you hit in a game when you were playing professionally?
My best was 2, and on that night, I actually was a double away from the cycle. I had
What?
hit a home run, yeah, home run, triple, single, and I'd had another at bat where I flew out or something. Last at bat in the ninth inning, we were on the road. I had a chance to hit for cycle, and instead of cycle, hit a line drive, and it was one of those stadiums that had a high wall,
Yeah.
and it was I hit it so hard, never had a chance to hit the wall. It just kind of went out, and instead of the cycle, I had 2 home runs, a triple, and a single.
How did
That
how did
was
that
in
feel
Double
to
A.
So when you look at a stat line like that, how does that feel? Oh, and let me add, so keep that in mind. But if it had hit the wall and you had an opportunity to get a double, would you have stopped at first base?
You mean second?
That no, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Um,
if you had an opportunity that because you said you needed a single, you needed a double.
I need a double. I needed a
So yeah,
double.
so would you if let's say if you had a chance to get a triple, would you have stopped at second base?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, but that I mean, but that home run, and there were other nights where I had 2 home runs as well. That was my best was 2. But I mean
Nice.
that night in particular with the chance for the cycle, that was a pretty impressive stat line. I think I have that because the next day I was this was back in the day when they used to have papers, and we were on the road, and I remember grabbing the paper. I think I do have that in one of my scrapbooks somewhere. Just that stat line because that was one of my most impressive days.
Nice, nice. So we do this thing 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. While training camps are open and things will start to happen in terms of college football and professional football, it's still kind of some of the dog days. And there are definitely what does it say? Intellectual topics that we can get into. But today I wanted to rely on we got lists coming out right around now in the dog days of summer. So I don't really like lists, but I wanted to get your thoughts, especially because you are a fantasy football dude. So I think with the first one we'll be talking about, kind of maybe related to how you're going to go about when it comes time for your fantasy football team. How many leagues are you going to be in this year? Because weren't you in 3 last year?
That's usually the going rate. 2 of them are pay in leagues, and those are I'm always in those. And then I always get talked into at least one more that's just for fun, and that's my max now. You get to after that you start it gets too conflicting where you have too many players. This week you're playing this guy in your lineup, but you have him against you, and it gets too complicating. So that's
Yeah.
just too frustrating.
Cool. So and then yeah, so let's dive into it. So CBS Sports come out with a couple of different kind of rankings and lists and things like that. And when I was going through after listening to some Sirius XM yesterday, I went to the site and I found a couple things that kind of jumped out at me. One was they had a ranking. What is it? Tyler Sullivan had a ranking, and this is on the 15th of July. So, but ranked the NFL's top 10 offensive position groups for 2024. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on if any of those kind of jumped out at you. For example, he had the Bears at number 10 with their wide receivers, which is interesting because DJ Moore just got paid with a capital PAIND. You saw that yesterday. You saw he got what 100 some $100 million, but 82 guaranteed. That guarantee is what we like. But yeah, so the
Yeah.
the Bears were at number 10. And stop me if any of these kind of jump out at you. At number 9, the Titans wide receivers. because headed by former Cardinal DeAndre Hopkins. We got number 8, the Seahawks wide receivers with DK Metcalf, and that's going to be interesting because they're going through kind of a transition of sorts because they have a new head coach. But Eagles wide receivers, spearheaded by AJ Brown at number 7, the Dolphins wide receivers at number 6, of course, with Tyreek Hill, and I think that might be skewed a little bit because he tilts things way in the favor of terms of when you're looking at a receiver room. The Bengals wide receivers with T. Higgins in there at number 5. And let's see, we have number 4, the Dolphins backfield with Raheem Mostert. And let's see, at number 3, the Lions backfield, which I think is impressive. And number 2, the Lions offensive line. And so it's good that at least in this list that they give some love to the offensive line. And then number 1, the Texans wide receivers. And I think that Stephon Diggs is a little bit of he's a wild card of sorts because he's a diva wide receiver. I think that he can be boom or bust, I think, with a Stephon Diggs type. But any of these that stick out at you, or do you have a position group an offensive position group that you might want to throw in there?
Well, first things first, the last thing you mentioned is Texans wide receivers with Stephon Diggs. I think he'll be on his best behavior because it's a contract year.
Okay.
He's trying to get that big time money, so he's going to be on his, all his P's and Q's. He's going to be doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing because he wants to get that big paycheck. So until he gets that, you can expect him to stand in line. What stands out to me as far as groupings here, I love the fact that they got the Lions offensive line at number 2. How many times have we talked, Jay? We talk about offensive line. If you're on both fronts, offensive, defensive line, especially your offensive side, if you can beef that group up, I mean, you're already starting with an advantage, and to have that group, that high up there, and they just signed Penny Sewell to a big time contract. That group to be there, and then just behind them is your backfield. So you got, according to these groupings, you got one of the best offensive lines out there with a great backfield, and you got receivers. I mean, they're building, man. I mean, and who would have ever thought that the Detroit Lions would be at the top of some of these lists? And you just locked in your quarterback with Goff. Steady guy, not going to knock you off your feet with his athleticism or anything like that, but will stand tall in that pocket, deliver, and doesn't make a ton of mistakes. He's good for one of those goofs every now and then, but for the most part, he's solid. So for me, that stands out. I mean, if I'm the Lions GMs, I'm like, I need to go pop a collar right now because they're looking pretty good. And Dolphins did pretty good too with the backfield, and their as you mentioned, with their wide receiver group is tilted because of Tyreek. But golly, well, why wouldn't you? When you playing, it's like playing video games, and you got that that one player, where all you gotta do is go to him all the time. I mean, that's how you win championships in Madden. So
that's how you win championships in Madden, but that's not how you win championships in the NFL.
I was just, you beat me to it. I was just going to say, with Tua and the group and all that kind of stuff, that's especially when you get to that cold weather, and now you got to rely on your quarterback a little more. I don't think they're as strong at that position, and like I said, the cold weather obviously took those wide receivers out of the game last year when they had to go over to KC. So pretty good list there. I do love the fact that the Lions are stocked in all kind of positions, and if their defense can play well, they're going to be a beast to deal with this year. And I will be going and getting some of those wide receivers, and I'm going to use this list to beef up my fantasy teams this year for sure.
And what's interesting is there's a couple things that when you just mentioned that about the Dolphins and Tyreek Hill that stands out. You don't want to be the guy, because Tyreek Hill was this guy last year when they lost to the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. If this would have been a little bit warmer weather, I would have been no. The team, you got to be able to be, for as much as possible, depending on how your roster is built. You have to be a little bit. You have to be flexible. If it's cold, we got to be able to do what we do. If the conditions are ideal, which around that time of year, if unless you're playing in a dome, the conditions really aren't going to be ideal. So you have to adjust, and that's what I think. That's what makes the Dolphins almost. And I think they had the Dolphins backfield in there as well, but the Dolphins wide receivers almost like a one trick pony in some ways, because it's just based upon speed, not precise route running, but a lot on speed, so much on speed and just getting by you. And the other is when you're looking at they mentioned the Bears wide receivers at number 10. That means that Caleb Williams, even though, and we'll get into coaching here in just a second, but man, Eberflus all of a sudden looks like he's a much better coach than he was, and he was suspect last year. So why is he better this year? That's well, as they say in the corporate world, parking lot that for a moment, but that puts a lot of pressure on Caleb Williams because you got these receivers. Make sure you get the ball to them. So we might lose more games, maybe because our defense isn't where we need to be, or maybe some other things, but you have enough weapons to be able to get the ball. So be decisive, understand that let's maybe try to speed that learning curve up a bit because you have weapons at your disposal.
Well, Caleb's going to come in, and I like his confidence. I don't like his cockiness, and he might get knocked down just a peg or two because you think you're going to master this league walking in. I would like a little more humbleness and come in and let's see what I can do instead of I'm the man, here I am. And I'll be interested to find out how if he comes in and struggles, his teammates will either shy away or back him up. But he's put the target on himself by being so brash. And me personally, like you said, there will be no excuses because all you came in telling us you the man, and let's see you do it, And I am curious though, because I wasn't a big fan of all that crying and stuff during his senior year there or his season there at USC. And you and I talked about it, and everybody was like, he's just showing emotion. Okay, let's see what it looks like when it doesn't, if it's not perfect in the NFL and he has some struggles. I wasn't a big fan of all that, and you got to be a little stronger than that. I'm really going to be watching them, and at the same time, we'll talk about the coaching situation. I'm not a big fan of their coaching situation either.
Yeah.
They're going to be expected to win a few games because they won 7 last year. It wasn't like they were a bottom feeding team.
Yeah.
They just happened to have that pick from Carolina, and they got lucky there. So a lot of expectations, and I like the fact that he's not shying away from the meaning Caleb Williams, but at the same time, I'd like to see the game can humble you. Let's just say that much. It can humble you extremely.
This is true, and I would like to say, just along those lines, when we're talking about the emotion of the game and all that, is that being emotional or having those wins and losses kind of hit you. I think that'll wear you down over time a lot. I remember being in this is apples and oranges, but it's some way maybe in the general part of the graphs or quadrant is I remember when I was in management in the corporate world, the wins and losses really ate at me for my team in terms of the numbers that we put on the board and making sure that I was putting them in the right place to succeed and all that stuff. So it can eat at you, and I would go home and it'd be on my mind and all that stuff. So Caleb, hopefully that his cocky, it's almost like a Baker Mayfield in a way, because Baker was coming in talking about what he was going to do and all this stuff, and he got humbled. And then the funny thing is he got humbled, and then as soon as he gets his money, he back to being Baker though. He back you who you are. So we'll see about that, how he channels that emotion and that confidence that airs on being cockiness. So yeah. So he is Ed Smith. I am Jerron Adams. This is Easy Sports Talk Show. We do this 3 days a week. So make sure you tell a friend about what we have going on. So I mentioned coaches just a few minutes ago. So let's get into it again. This is from CBS Sports. This is a week or so old, but it's still when we're getting ready for the season. We talk about their coaches, I mean the players, yes, but it's also the culture and who's that CEO of the team, meaning who's that head coach. And so they put out a list of the head coaches, the best head coaches, so going from, of course, 32, going from worst to best. And we mentioned, and I want any of the ones that stood out to you in terms of where they were ranked, but one I'll throw out at you is that we talked about Eberflus just a moment ago, and so he's at number, I want to say 26 on this list. Is it? Yeah, I want to say he is at number 20. Yes, so 26 for the Bears. And so I wonder, just the when you're a CEO of a team, if any of these coaches that are ranked stuck out to you by being too high or too low. I think for those who are watching or listening, I am a Raiders fan, and so Antonio Pierce being at number 28, that sounds about right. Just because you were able to rally the troops a little bit, that could have been based upon emotion in the situation. And I'm saying I like this. I like our coordinator. Yeah, he's head coach and he seems like a cool guy, so we'll rally around him a bit. And so the true test will be what happens this season. So I think he's okay in terms of where he's at. But any of these rankings stick out to you?
Well, I'll just okay. So Sean Payton, the mad scientist, the genius, right? At
Yes.
18, that had to hurt his feelings a little bit because he really thinks he's the best that's ever done it. And obviously, some think that maybe not. We'll see what you've done with your one title, and and that's about it. So that had to hurt his feelings a little bit. I would say that's about where he should be. I do think. Let me see. We had D'Amico Ryans at 13. Come on, dog. He should
That's
be a
way
little
too
higher than
high.
that.
You should wait. You think it should be higher than that?
Yeah, he should be lower. Higher meaning better. He
Okay.
should be he should be in the top 10 if you ask me.
Man,
I mean, D'Amico Ryans.
But it was. I mean, we
talk
about sample sizes, right? I mean, he did. I'm not saying he didn't do a great job, but man, you think top 10?
You ever gone to a restaurant day and didn't have really high expectations, and then you had that meal and you were like, "Damn, that's the best steak I ever had. That's the best, chowder." And then you're like, "What are you gonna do, man? I'm going back there again, baby. When the next time we got something to celebrate, let's go back." And the next time you go, it's just as good, right? We got to see what he is going to do, but I'll be doggone if he didn't impress me with that first steak, bro. And I mean, it is just a list. Okay, so you got him there. You got O'Connell. Let me say, I'll just run a couple names at you that if you were picking your head coach, and now I'm saying all things involved because you can tell he's got his team following him. He's got a good quarterback. He's not stifling his quarterback. It looks like the team will run through a brick wall for him. There's a couple in front of him that, okay. Kevin Stefanski at number 10. Come on, what he's done in Cleveland. All right, you've had a whole lot of talent. You got Watson, I could do Sean McDermott.
But he's overcome a lot too, based upon having Watson. Because I'm sure I just wonder if he was the one that said when they said we're going to get Watson, he said yeah, or if he said, wait a minute, are we sure about this? Because despite he's persevered in spite of.
You're starting your franchise, right? You just bought XYZ franchise. You billionaire, and you had a chance between Kevin Stefanski and D'Amico Ryans. Who you taking as your head coach?
D'Amico Ryans.
Okay, that's all I need to hear.
Okay,
all right?
Okay.
Sean McDermott with the Bills. He's underachieved, if you ask me. Has had Josh Allen there, and you can tell as soon as he lost your boy to the Giants, the head coach now with the Giants, Dable, I think it is.
Yep.
You could tell he's lost the defensive coordinator. He's losing people in this team. Their window is just slowly closing. These Bills. So I mean, I'll get off D'Amico now, but I'm just saying, what he's done in a short period of time, I like what he's doing. Okay. Dan Campbell, 8. I like Dan Campbell, bro. I think what he's done with those Lions will bite your kneecaps and claw and fight you from the ground. And I know I know there's a lot of love for Jim Harbaugh because what he did in college, but to throw him up there in 7, just throw him up there like it still is a new game. He's going to have to adjust a little bit. I think Dan Campbell could have been a little higher on the list, but then you start getting into the top. Mike Tomlin, you can't argue with some of those. LaFleur, he did a good job finishing the season off last year. John Harbaugh, you can't argue with some of those as you get to the top. So it's hard to bump anybody from there. Andy Reid, that's the dude. I have a hard time saying that, but that's the dude right now, Andy Reid.
Yeah.
He's like, that dude's a genius, and he's got it rolling. I'm excited for my nephew up there, man. I can't wait to actually see Andy when we go up there for a visit or anything like that. I'm gonna tell him about himself. What he did to me a bunch of years ago, but I'll still give him a hug.
What's interesting is, so with this list, they broke it down into kind of different tiers. So the top 13, I want to say the top 13, those are the class A best in the game. And I guess the issue that I have. So would you say Kevin O'Connell is one of the best in the game in terms of because he's at number 12? I mean, I don't think that he's bad, but I don't know if I would say he's one of the best in the game when it comes to that. Either him or Mike McDaniel. I get that Mike McDaniel, when we talk about Dolphins coaches, we don't often say that they are, since Don Shula, right? We don't say that these are the best in the game, and maybe that's my bias coming into play here. But I would say that Mike McDaniel is just slightly out of it. Maybe he'd be a 14, between 14 and 20 or something along those lines. But I don't know if he's the best in the game, if that based upon what their criteria is.
Yeah, when I think of like the best of the game, they have a hand in everything. Mike McDonald, and I think they were on Hard Knocks last year. He seems like, and I just from my outside view, he's a dude that just kind of lets the defense do what they do because he's not really involved on that side of the ball.
Yeah.
And for me, that if I'm grading all, remember you got to be CEO. We went through a situation out here with the Cardinals where we had a dude that could care less about the offense and or defense, I'm sorry. And even his offense was bad, but so he wasn't handling anything. But for me, and this is just my feel, that's why I'll go back to DeMeco Ryans. I can see DeMeco Ryans, obviously he's a defensive guy, right? I can see him making sure he has his hands on the special teams and the offense, not letting anything get away from him. Whereas I just get a feel that O'Connell and even McDaniel, they're like, well, just give me a report what you guys are doing over there, and we'll, that's cool, And if it sounds good, it's like, yeah, that sounds good, cool. Let's roll with that. So that's just part of my feel. I get that tingle when I think about DeMeco going from room to room to room, and with McDaniel, I can see him, just asking for the report, and everything's just good. So, and that's, like I said, we'll see.
Yeah.
But when you're putting your list together, that's why my list would have been a little different with somebody like McDaniel, maybe a little higher, DeMeco a little lower, and then some of these other ones shift them around as well.
Gotcha. So he's Ed Smith. I'm Javon Adams here, EasySportsTalk.com, do it 3 days a week. So I want to ask you this before we head out. In when we talk about coaches, talk about offensive lines, when you're, and this can go with any sport, can any great player flourish in any system? Can any great player flourish in any system, or is it really about time and place? So the reason I asked that is because there was I was kind of going around the dial yesterday, and so when, for example, people talking about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, don't matter if he's on the Jets now. It was, of course, on Green Bay Packers. Wherever you put him, he's going to flourish. Sam Darnold, maybe not so much. It's about where you go, how you're going to be built up, the training that you get, the coaching that you get, etc. Do you think any great player will be able to flourish in any system?
No, I think system does matter. I do think the great ones can. And what is your definition of great? There are tiers of great. Tom Brady is the greatest that's ever done it.
Okay, but let's say Tom Brady, for example, and let's say, even if it's not great, if let's say really good, or even if we break it down to the next level beyond that, before that, do you think if Tom Brady was in, let's say, so we're looking at around that time, if he was on the Raiders around that time, who were, the franchise wasn't necessarily the best, and it's not the best now, or if he was on the Cardinals, if they had drafted him in the fifth or whatever, the sixth round, so forth and so on, do you think that his true talent would have been given an opportunity to come to the forefront?
Not Tom Brady from his early years, but Here's the thing: when you're talking about, and this is interesting conversation, we could sit and talk about this forever. Tom Brady, the great quarterback, would, like, even let's say Mahomes as well. Mahomes is at a stage in his game right now where say if something happened, they had a dispute, and he was, found out somebody on the team was sleeping with his wife, whatever. He's like, I had to get the hell out of Kansas City, and he went somewhere else, right?
Mm-hmm.
He is so great, he would not accept whatever. Like if he came into your system was garbage,
Mm-hmm.
he would make you create a system that revolved around him. Same thing with Tom Brady. Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay and was like, this is garbage what you guys have here. This is how we should do it. BA was down there at the time. He's like, well, do what you do. So the great ones make the situation around them adapt, but there's only so many of those guys. Though we talk about 1%ers, that's 0.01 percenters. So then you talk about guys that are great at what they do on the field, but they need that assistance. Those guys need a system, because we all know we've seen good players or great players go to somewhere else that just didn't quite fit them, and sometimes it just doesn't work. They can't overcome the chaos, the lack of whatever the ingredients they need to make it right. And we're always like, well, how come they were so good there? And look at OBJ.
Okay.
Think about when he was in New York with the Giants, he was just, but he was the man, and they did everything around him. The second he left there, he's never been the same dude once he left there. That system was great for him, even though he's not been the same dude. And you can run down a list of players that have gone somewhere and it wasn't quite the fit. And you can do it in reverse too. You can look at players that were okay here. They was just in a bad system, bad environment, and they went somewhere and it was like, wow. And you look at somebody like a Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy would not be Brock Purdy anywhere else but in San Fran. Yeah. And I consistently say, as long as that man stays there and they lock him up and Shanahan's his head coach, that dude he's gonna get. Think about this, Jay. He was the last man picked in the draft a few years ago. Yeah. He is up for soon to be making $50 or $55 million a year. He's going to be making. Why? Because of the system he's in.
And to your point though, that's one of the things. So you should never, I would imagine you'll agree with this, you should never move out of fear, right? But if you have to understand where you're at too. So if you're a Purdy, or let's say if you were any quarterback that is in a great situation, or any player that's in a great situation, regardless of sports, and you think that I'm the one that made this, you got to be very careful to be able to evaluate the coaches around you and the organization around you. What have they done to enhance you? Maybe they haven't enhanced you exponentially, but they've enhanced you enough to be able to let you do your thing. Because you mentioned Mahomes. Mahomes is a great. The way in which he plays, oftentimes almost like backyard football, right? So if you have a coach who is very strict and we play within this box, the way he would be stifled in his growth and his creativity would be limited.
Andy Reid actually, he's like, look, man, it would be like, some dude, we got these dudes with these trophy wives out there, right? And you pay all this money, and you gonna go out, and she got all the cleavage and everything hanging out, and this, and the short dress, and you're like, well, babe, why are you wearing that? And he's like, I was wearing this when I met you, right? Now I'm saying you want to, you got to let them be what they are. Yeah, that's the same thing with Mahomes. And I'm sure Andy Reid, and I know Andy because I played under him. Yeah. But when he saw Mahomes doing what he was doing, he's like, go ahead, girl, do your thing. Yeah. She come walking out the room, she's like, yeah. And he actually designs, you know what Andy does? He goes out and finds that dress for her. Because Andy is making them plays. And Andy is going out, he's like, babe, look what I just got you. You see all the stuff they be doing. So when Mahomes out there doing this thing, he like, go get it, girl. And that's exactly, you can't stifle that. Whereas other head coaches in Mahomes' first year, he'd have been like throwing left-handed, hey, in practice, hey, how about guys, let's time out. Come here. I don't want to see any of that. We can't, we got to protect the ball out here. We don't, this stuff where you play in the backyard. Nah. And that, that would have stifled him.
You would have coached that creativity right out of him.
Yes. And just to put a stamp on what we are about here when we talk, Jay, this is of people. People think we talk sports all the time. This is the same in the business world.
Yeah,
Too many
that's life.
times.
That's even parenting. You
Parenting, yeah.
you be so strict and you take the creativity out of your kids too.
Yeah, sometimes you got to let them do. I mean, maybe you might
Yeah.
have the next Denzel or somebody like that, but you trying to talk them into the, and I'm not saying you can't. You want them to also be sturdy in the basics. You want to be a good student, but hey, they want to go out and do some different things. Go ahead, try it. And in the office, you have people, they're constantly having these ideas, and they come in and they're like, look, I think if we did this might do it. And nah, we don't do that around here. We just, we met, and you missing the opportunity for somebody to come in and just blow your doors off. And next thing you know, you have the business that created this or did that. And who's responsible for that? This dude right here or this woman right here. So it's the same thing. You got to sometimes let people be people and use their skills, even if they scare you sometimes,
That is key. That is what we call a bar in the rap world, or in church you say that is a word right there. He is Ed Smith. I'm Javon Adams. Again, we do this 3 times a week. Make sure you let a friend know about what we do here. EasySportsTalk.com is the website. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube as well. So go to the Easy Sports Talk Show. And however you get this, make sure you subscribe, like, share all that stuff so you can get notified on when a new episode drops. And so, as we always like to say around this time, you can